Patch 12.10 is out now, and whoo boy, some things have been a-changing. In this video, I'm going to cover what's gotten better, what's gotten worse, and also 7 champions you need to add to your support pool that are OP in these early stages of the new, more durable League of Legends. First off, let's just talk generally on what supports have gotten better or worse. To my dismay, poke and AP mage supports in general have gotten worse. There are a few outliers that we're going to talk about later that have gotten much stronger, but with how durable everyone now is, early game poke feels like you're tickling enemies, and the amount of spells you need to hit to now push someone out of lane or net a kill is so much higher in the early game that you'll normally go out of mana instead faster, forcing you either to leave lane or become completely irrelevant since you won't be able to cast your abilities. Overall, mage and caster supports are losers of this patch. Hook supports are next. For a while, champions like Blitzcrank or Nautilus were some of the best supports you could pick due to how much damage your team can do. One hook would typically mean one kill, but now, even if you land a hook, that doesn't guarantee a kill for your team unless you're in a grouped setting or the allied champion you're paired with is somewhat fed. Catching someone out before a team fight is always going to be something that can be helpful to your team, but now you're going to have to be more accurate and always aim for an ADC or squishy mid laner. Overall, hook supports are losers of this patch. Enchanters have been really strong for a long time, with champions like Senna, Soraka, and Janna all having win rates well over 50% for several patches in a row now. While Riot did nerf the amount of healing and shielding in the game across the board for all champions, they also nerfed healing cut or grievous wounds as well. Enchanters do feel a bit different to play, and the healing or shielding you give to your allies is going to feel smaller, but with how long fights are now, you can regularly get several casts of your healing or shielding abilities off in one fight, as well as you dying a lot less. Overall, enchanter supports are winners of this patch. Finally, we have tanky and engage supports. While they've never been bad per se, there definitely was more risk involved with playing champions that like to get into the middle of fights due to the overall damage that was in the game. Many times diving into the enemy team would mean a pick for yours, but also trading your life for it too. Now, if you play something like Alistar, Leona, or even Rel instead of diving in and dying, thanks to these changes, you can survive much longer. And just like the enchanter role, that means more casts of your abilities and more overall effectiveness. Overall, tanky and engage supports are winners of this patch. There's other subclasses we could dive into, but those 4 encompass the support class pretty well. And even within those loser groups, there are some champions that have become much stronger in patch 12.10 and beyond. So now, let's talk about the 7 support champs that are the biggest winners of patch 12.10 that you should really consider adding into your own champion pool to get some easy FREELO. Brand has been at the bottom of my and many others' tier lists for a long time for the support role. With how squishy and immobile he is, he was not only easy to blow up, but his damage while uber high normally could be matched at safer ranges by previously more dominant poke supports like Zyra. Now, in patch 12.10, Brand's extreme damage and percentage health passive makes him one of the only mage support that feels like they still do damage, and being tankier makes it so his previous weakness of immobility is less glaring than before. Coupled with all of this is Brand's favorite mythic item to purchase, Liandry's, which we're going to see as we keep progressing upwards in this list. Mage supports that love Liandry's typically have favored better in this patch. For your build, you'll want to start with a Spell Thief's Edge, rush Liandry's for your mythic, pick up Sorc Shoes in the majority of games, look to purchase a Demonic Embrace for even more burn, and round out the build with situational items like Morellonomicon, Zhonya's, or Rylai's. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Sorcery, and like every good support does, you'll be buying control wards throughout the game, and maybe a wardstone if the game goes very late. Here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. Speaking of caster supports that love Liandry's as their item, we next have Zyra. Zyra has always been a middle-of-the-pack caster support, but with similar problems to Brand, like immobility, being outranged by her competitors, and just really generally being underwhelming. Now, just like Brand, her massive DPS capabilities, and unlike Brand, her extreme ease of applying Liandry's to enemies with her plants, means that she could really have a solid impact for her team, and even outdamage many other DPS champions. Zyra makes her way up the list a little bit bit higher than Brand because of her better CC potential and her ultimate, which in longer, scrappier team fights is easier to use than in previous patches. For your build, you'll want to start with a Spell Thief's Edge. Rush Liandry's for your mythic, pick up Sork Shoes in the majority of games, look to purchase a Demonic Embrace for even more burn, and round out the build with situational items like Morellonomicon, Zonia's, or Rylai's. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Sorcery, and like every good support does, you'll be purchasing control wards throughout the game, and maybe a ward stone if the game goes very late. Here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. Out of all healing and shielding abilities that were nerfed, Zilean's ultimate heal went completely untouched. It's not only this that has made Zilean, a champion who was already good pre-patch, even better. ADCs have once again become the main characters of League of Legends, and Zilean is one of the best supports at enabling them with his massive speed boosts and revive mechanic. And it's not only ADCs though, but the meta in top and jungle has also shifted to more bruiser-focused champions that have no dash, such as Olaf, Darius, and Shyvana. Zilean works really well with any immobile champion that wants to go in, and now that that's all that's being picked, he is heavily reaping the rewards. For your build, you'll start with a Spell Thief's Edge, rush your Boots of Lucidity, grab a Shurelya's for your mythic, and from here look at situational items like Zonia's, Banshees, Putrefier, or whatever fits well. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Sorcery, and like every good support does, you'll be purchasing control wards throughout the game, and maybe a ward stone if the game goes very late. Here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. Janna was already a strong enchanter before the latest patch, boasting a 52% win rate across the board in games of Platinum or higher. But now, post-patch, she's benefited from the tankier stats and longer team fights to increase her win rate at the time of recording this to over 54%. The way you play Janna is not really going to be altered, but just like our other squishy boys, the added durability has allowed her to stay in the middle of team fights longer, allowing her to perform her job of peeling, healing, and shielding even better than previous patches. For your build, you'll want to start with a Spell Thief's Edge, rush your Boots of Lucidity, grab either a Moonstone or Shurelya's, and then build situational enchanter items like Putrefier, Ardent Censer, Redemption, or Mikhail's Blessing. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Sorcery, and like every good support does, you'll be buying control wards throughout the game, and maybe a ward stone if the game goes very late. Here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. Is it controversial that I'm going to put vel'koz higher than Janna on the list? Probably. Do I believe it to be true? Definitely. vel'koz is the mage support that has seen the most improvement to his relevance this patch. Not only does he love to build Liandry's like Zyra and Brand, but his passive also allows him to do true damage, which doesn't give one fuck about any additional durability stats Riot may have given everyone. We already saw that vel'koz in the right hands can make it all the way to Challenger when we analyze one-trick player Azap, but now he feels just a bit more accessible to the masses. For your build, you'll want to start with a Spell Thief's Edge. Rush your level 2 boots, either grabbing Boots of Lucidity or Sork Shoes, grab Liandry's or Luden's if their team is somehow full of all squishies, next either a Horizon Focus or Shadow Flame depending on the enemy team's MR, and then build into situational items like Zonia's, Banshees, or a Death Cap. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Sorcery, and like every good support does, you'll either purchase control wards throughout the game, and maybe a ward stone if the game goes very late. And again, here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. Renata, just like Zilean, has a revive ability where the amount of health gained after the revive was completely untouched in comparison to other healing abilities. Beyond that though, Renata's biggest counter in lane, poke, and mage supports we've already established took a sizable hit this patch in their effectiveness, making her potential counter matchups less troublesome than they were previously. On top of this, Renata's passive does percentage health damage, which is very strong this patch, and now with bruiser champions being extremely strong and ADCs growing in power, her ultimate can be an absolute game changer if it is applied to the right people. She's definitely worth a revisit if you haven't picked her up yet. For your build, you can either start with a Relic Shield or a Spell Thief's Edge, build into your mythic, which can be any of these three, and then go for typical enchanter items like these or tankier items like these. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Iron, and like every good support does, you'll purchase control wards throughout the game, and maybe a ward stone if the game goes very late. Here are the typical runes and skill order that high elo players are going. It's no secret that Senna has been dominating patch 12.10 so far, and that's largely because both games and fights go on much longer than before, which Senna strives in. Early patch numbers showed her at above a 55% win rate, which was so heinous she was one of a few champions that had to be toned back in a mid-patch update. Even so, after that slight update to her numbers, she's still been able to uphold close to a 54% win rate, so while she may be seeing even more nerfs coming, it would be in your best interest to pick her up ASAP so that way you can reap the rewards of the free LP she's passing on. For your build, you should start with a Spectral Sickle, rush into your Boots of Swiftness, and then build an Umbral Glaive. From there, you should purchase your Mythic item, an Eclipse, and then build into your other core damage dealing items like Rapid Fire Cannon, Man Immune, and LDR. If the game goes long, you'll purchase an Elixir of Wrath, and like every good support does, you'll be purchasing Control Wards throughout the game, and maybe a Wardstone if the game goes very late. And finally, here are the last typical runes and skill order that high elo players are using on Senna as well. Thanks guys for checking out the video. If you want more support content, go check out last week's video on what happened to the best Thresh in the world, Mad Life, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.